In the heart of suburbia, where lawns are manicured with surgical precision and hedges stand as stoic sentinels, my house sat like a cheerful splash of defiance. It was a kaleidoscope among a monotonous sea of beige and gray. I had always believed in the power of color, a vivid testimony to life's vibrance. But in this tidy realm governed by the iron fist of the homeowners association, my house was an anomaly, a lone symphony in an otherwise droning hum. Karen, the self-appointed arbiter of neighborhood aesthetics, was not amused. Her power, like that of a minor deity, lay in the bylaws and regulations she wielded with unyielding fervor. She was a fixture at every HOA meeting, her voice carrying the clipped precision of someone who had plans for everyone. A whisper of disapproval was all it took to set her in motion. Her first salvo was subtle, almost courteous, a letter left with the delicate precision of a surgeon's scalpel on my doorstep. Its message, wrapped in the guise of friendly advice, suggested a more harmonious palette for my home. But I was not inclined to exchange my joyful hues for the bland conformity that hugged the neighborhood so tightly. I tucked the letter away, a reminder of the skirmish that had only just begun. Days passed with the fluid grace of a river over stones, and I continued with my life, unfazed. The tulips in my garden, vibrant under the sun's affectionate gaze, seemed to nod their approval. In moments of quiet reflection, I imagined what it was like to walk through the world as Karen did, seeing only what was wrong, what needed correction. Her vision, I mused, was an arid landscape, stripped of the unexpected beauty that color could bring. Karen's next move was less subtle. She arrived at my doorstep one morning with the punctuality of a tax collector, her demeanor as brisk as the autumn wind. Standing there, her eyes flickered over my house like a censorious spotlight, seeking out every transgression against neighborhood decorum. Her lips curled ever so slightly, a smile that never reached her eyes as she mentioned the latest HOA guidelines and the penalties for noncompliance. I listened with a serenity that belied the quiet storm within me. Her words were like the distant roll of thunder, a warning of the storm to come. But there was a part of me, deep and unwavering, that refused to bend. This house, with its brilliant coat, was more than a residence. It was a canvas, an expression of individuality and joy, a reflection of my heart's deepest desires. When she left, she managed a parting shot, a single line delivered with surgical precision. The board will reconvene soon. It was a promise of continued engagement, a declaration of an ongoing battle. But as I watched her retreating figure, I felt a sense of calm determination settle over me. I knew her kind, the kind that believed in the power of regulations and conformity, in the supremacy of uniformity over expression. In the days that followed, I reached out to an artist whose work I had admired for its daring creativity and unique perspective. A synesthesia artist, someone who could see sounds, taste colors, and translate them into a visual spectacle. With the artist's brush poised to create a masterpiece that would defy not just Karen, but the very ethos of the HOA, I awaited the transformation. The house would soon be reborn, a beacon of audacity and beauty, unfurling like a flag of rebellion in the heart of the suburbia. It would be a testament to the richness of diversity, a challenge to every unyielding rule that sought to suppress the vibrant pulse of life. The stage was set, the actors in place, and in this quiet drama, I found a sense of joy and a promise of colorful revenge. The morning sun spilled lazily over the edges of the neighborhood roofs, casting a golden hue that seemed almost too serene for what lay underneath. The air was crisp, yet tinged with an unmistakable tension. An unnatural order permeated the neat rows of houses, each more carefully curated than the next. My own home, freshly adorned by the synesthesia artist's wild interpretation of color and sound, stood like a rebellious symphony amidst a sea of muted, monotonous tones. Karen had not taken kindly to my artistic choices. Her displeasure had transformed into a meticulous campaign, meticulously crafted like an artist's brush strokes on a canvas of resentment. She was a maestro of the absurd, conducting a symphony of rules and regulations that only she could hear. The first citation arrived like an unwanted guest, uninvited and insistent. "Improper lawn maintenance," it declared, though my lawn was as immaculate as the rest. I imagined Karen peering through her curtains, a general surveying her domain, ready to pounce on any perceived infraction. Her scrutinizing gaze, sharp as a hawk's, could find fault in a rose garden. Then, a new edict emerged. All holiday decor must adhere to community standards. A vague decree, pliable to her whims. No more twinkling lights to cast playful shadows on the sidewalk. No more whimsical wreaths that dared to express individuality. My creativity, it seemed, was an affront to the sanitized uniformity she so fiercely protected. Gossip spread like ivy, infiltrating every crevice of conversation. Neighbors, once cordial, now exchanged furtive glances, their whispers like rustling leaves, deciphering my supposed transgressions. Karen's reach extended far beyond her own hedges. She wielded influence with the precision of a seamstress, stitching together a narrative that painted me as the villain in her suburban saga. I watched as dogs were walked and children played, the ordinary rhythm of life undisturbed by the undercurrent of absurdity. My house, now a kaleidoscope of color and emotion, stood defiant, a testament to the vibrancy Karen sought to quash. I felt an unexpected kinship with the chameleons of the world, those who dared to stand out amidst the camouflage of conformity. Karen was relentless. She wore determination like armor, each new rule a lance she wielded with righteous indignation. I imagined her meetings in the HOA enclave, rallying support, her voice a steady drumbeat of authority. The rules were her scripture, and she recited them with zealous fervor. Yet, beneath her veneer of control, I sensed fragility, a hollow space echoing with the fears of losing power, of being outshone by a brighter palette. Her fortress of rules felt less like strength and more like a desperate grasp for control in a world that refused to adhere to her vision of order. Amidst the chaos, I found unexpected tranquility, an understanding that my home, with its vivid hues and rebellious spirit, was more than a canvas. It was a statement, a declaration that the world could be more than shades of beige. And so, I stood my ground, a quiet resolve simmering just beneath the surface. Karen might have her rules, her citations, and her gossip, but I had something far more potent, a house that sang with colors, each shade a note in a melody she could never silence. In that, I found power. In that, I found peace. The rain had stopped just after dawn, leaving the world smelling of damp earth and renewal. I stepped outside, feeling the cool air kiss my skin. My house stood there like a daring artist's palette splashed against the muted grays of the other homes. The vibrant hues shimmered in the early morning light, each color a note in a symphony that only a synesthete could compose. The sight was a silent rebellion against Karen's monochrome dictatorship. I liked to imagine the house breathing, each shade expanding with life. Reds that sang of warmth and passion, blues that whispered of depth and mystery. They were alive, these colors. They danced across the walls with a boldness that defied Karen's sterile vision of our neighborhood. This was my home, my canvas of defiance. I had documented everything. Each passive-aggressive note from Karen, each sideways glance from her loyal followers, and of course, the official letters from the HOA, delivered with the precision of a guillotine's blade. They were all neatly organized in a folder labeled Artistic Freedom. I smiled at the irony. Artistry in a folder, each page a brushstroke of rebellion. Truthfully, the preparation had been more soothing than the house's transformation. The act of documenting was a ritual, each piece of paper a testament to my quiet defiance. A portfolio of resistance. Karen's obsession with conformity had made her predictable. She was like a clock whose ticking could be heard even in silence. I knew her next move before she made it. The HOA meeting, her platform to perform, was scheduled for that evening. A perfect stage for my subtle counter. I had no need for grand gestures or shouting matches. The truth was my ally, and the truth is patient. The meeting unfolded in the community center, its walls a dull beige, the color of apathy, I mused. I took my seat, feeling the weight of eyes lingering on me, anticipation crackling like static in the air. Karen, with her coiffed hair and eyes like chipped ice, began her monologue. Her words were laced with the venom of self-righteousness. I watched her, feeling oddly detached, as if observing a play from the comfort of a theater seat. She was predictable, almost pitiful in her lack of nuance. I barely heard the specifics of her argument, her words a dull hum against the vibrant canvas I carried within. The moment arrived, as it always does, when the truth was needed. I spoke with a calmness that surprised even me. One line, a simple statement, crafted to slice through the facade. Art is not a crime. The room inhaled collectively. Karen's eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty, a crack in her armor. Silence followed, stretching thin between us all. I knew then, as I had always known, that Karen's power was an illusion. Her control was as fragile as the paper it was printed on. I had won not through confrontation, but through quiet resilience. The colors of my home stood as a testament, a vivid monument to individuality in a sea of conformity. As I walked home, the night air was alive with the scent of possibility. My house welcomed me back, its colors vibrant even in the dim light. I had painted my world with the bold strokes of freedom, and no amount of gray could ever dull its brilliance. The paint was barely dry when the next letter arrived. It was a predictable consequence, as inevitable as rain after a cloud passes over. Karen's latest missive was filled with underlined words and exclamation points, her penmanship increasingly frantic, as if she believed that fury could bend the ink to her will. She believed my house, my sanctuary, was an affront to her carefully curated suburban dream. Her words were a cacophony of complaints, visual assault, insult to community standards, and the perennial favorite, property values. I imagined her at her breakfast table, lips pursed to a razor-thin line, each stroke of the pen like a nail in a coffin she had prepared just for me. Karen, the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood homogeneity, mistook uniformity for harmony. I gazed at the mural, now a riotous symphony of colors and patterns that sang with the unrestrained joy of a child's laughter. The synesthesia artist had woven magic across my walls, turning pigment into music. Each hue strummed a different chord. Each shade told a new story. To me, it was a masterpiece. To Karen, it was a declaration of war. But I had no intention of engaging her on her battlefield. A different plan had quietly unfurled, like the petals of a night-blooming flower. It began with research, a deep dive into the arcane and convoluted world of homeowners association bylaws. Every page was a new chapter in a saga of restrictions and regulations, penned by those who sought order above all else. Yet within those lines, I found the key to my kingdom. A clause nestled deep in the legalese spoke of artistic expression as a protected form of property enhancement, provided it received approval from a committee long dormant, its very existence forgotten by those too focused on enforcing conformity. I resurrected it, quietly, without fanfare. I gathered allies, neighbors who had grown weary of Karen's reign. Some had suffered under her scrutiny, others simply longed for a breath of fresh air. Together, we petitioned for a review. We submitted the artist's work for consideration, presenting it not as rebellion, but as enrichment, culture, framed and packaged for those who might otherwise dismiss it. The night before the judgment, I stood before the mural, tracing the lines with my eyes. It was a tapestry of memories and dreams rendered in color. The artist had captured something rare, the essence of what it meant to feel alive. I wondered if Karen ever allowed herself such indulgence, or if she had walled it off, bricks of duty and mortar of control. The decision arrived like dawn, quietly dispelling the shadows. Approval granted, not unanimously, but decisively. The mural, once a contentious battleground, now stood as an official emblem of neighborhood vibrancy. It was a victory not just for me, but for everyone who believed in more than just black and white. Karen would find her letter in the mail, written in the cool, detached prose of formal acceptance. I imagined her reading it, the color draining from her face as the realization set in. Her fortress of sameness had been breached, not with a battering ram, but with a paintbrush. In the days that followed, I noticed small changes. A flower bed here, a painted mailbox there. Like tentative notes in a symphony, the neighborhood began to hum with the beginnings of individuality. It was a subtle transformation, but undeniable. Our world was waking up. As for Karen, she retreated into her fortress, curtains drawn tight. Her silence spoke louder than any complaint ever could. Perhaps she was plotting her next move, or perhaps she was learning to see the world anew. Either way, the colors outside remained, vibrant, unapologetic, and free. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the floor of my living room. I watched as the light danced across the wooden slats, a symphony of hues that once again reminded me of the unexpected art that my home had become. The walls, now alive with the synesthesia artist's vision, were a tapestry of colors that told secrets to those who dared to look closer. Each shade whispered stories, not just of rebellion, but of a neighborhood transformed. Karen had not taken kindly to the change. Her protests had echoed through the community like a discordant symphony, but this morning, there was silence. The kind of silence that comes after the storm has passed and the air is charged with the scent of something new. It felt like the prelude to an understanding long overdue. Stepping outside, I found the neighborhood oddly quiet, save for the gentle rustling of leaves. The houses, once indistinguishable in their uniformity, now stood out against the vibrant backdrop that mine had set. Inspired by rebellion or perhaps a newfound appreciation for individualism, others had begun to embrace color. Doors painted in striking blues, shutters in bold reds, gardens blooming with unrestrained enthusiasm. It was as if the entire street had decided to shake off the weight of conformity. I walked slowly, soaking in the transformation. The air felt different, lighter somehow, as if the collective breath of the community had become less burdened. Karen's house stood at the end of the street, its beige facade a stark, lonely reminder of the old order. There was a time when her stern gaze would follow everyone's every move, but today, her curtains remained drawn, her presence a mere shadow. As I passed by, I noticed a small group gathered outside her home. The neighbors, once hesitant, now conversed in low murmurs, a mix of curiosity and relief in their tones. It seemed Karen had been sidelined by the very change she'd fought so hard to prevent. Her silence, an unspoken concession to the wave she could no longer control. Reaching the end of the street, I turned back and took in the view. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, illuminating not just the houses, but the spirits of those who lived within them. The colors seemed to pulse with life, each shade a testament to the quiet revolution that had unfolded. In that moment, I felt a sense of calm, a quiet power in knowing that the beauty of the world could not be contained by arbitrary rules or dictated by those who feared change. It was ironic, really. Karen's attempt to dim the vibrancy of life had only intensified its brilliance. Her reign, once unquestioned, was now a footnote in the story of a neighborhood reborn. As I turned to head back home, a gentle breeze carried the faintest sound of laughter, pure, unrestrained, and hopeful. The kind of laughter that suggested perhaps, just perhaps, the neighborhood had found its true colors after all.